Good morning and welcome to Mainline Unitarian Church. I'm Barbara Welsh, a member of your Board of Trustees. I'd like to welcome those of you who are here in the room with us, as well as our friends on YouTube. Thank you for joining us. And I'd like to send a special welcome to anyone who's joining us for the first time. Is anyone here a first-time visitor? If you'd raise your hand, please. Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you for being here. And after the service, you can join us for coffee in our coffee room, which is across the atrium as you go out of our main doors. Please join us, and if you're here new, please take a special visitor's cup so we'll know to greet you. This morning, we welcome one of our own as our speaker, Terry Dixon. He grew up in Dublin, Ireland, but has lived in the U.S. since the 1980s and has been a member of our church for almost 20 years. Terry has served as a member of the Board of Trustees, chair of the Worship Committee, a member of the Mission Task Force, chair of the Strategic Planning Committee, and member of a Ministerial Search Committee. After a career in law, Terry completed his initial training as a hospital chaplain and has now decided to pursue the path toward ordination as a UU minister. He is currently completing a master's degree at Trinity College, Dublin, and later this month will start a Master of Divinity degree at Harvard Divinity School. And our worship team this morning is Dawn Star Saris Borchelt, our Director of Lifespan Faith Development, and she will lead us in Time for All Ages. Dr. Vincent Craig, who's our music director, and Tina Adams, who's our worship associate. Who are we? At Mainline Unitarian Church, and we sometimes call ourselves MLUC, we are a liberal, inclusive religious community coming together to support each other to create a more just, compassionate, and equitable world. I have been a member here for almost 50 years, and I'm so grateful as I make my spiritual journey to be a part of this congregation. And I have two announcements today. One is from our membership manager, Madeleine Seiko, and she asks that after the services, you please put your name tags in the basket on the table between the two doors to the coffee room, instead of putting your name tags into the carousel. Your name tags will be back in the carousel next week when you come. And now for our exciting news as we prepare for our new minister. Thank you, Vincent. Our new senior minister, Dr. John Morehouse, will hold his first official worship service here next Sunday on August 20th. Please join us next Sunday to welcome Reverend John and his wife, Frances. There'll be a very special after-service coffee hour with a light lunch to celebrate our new beginnings together. And you don't want to miss any of the excitement next Sunday. And Reverend John is here this morning. So please turn your devices to worship mode. That means off. And together, let's say our mission statement. Together, we transform lives through love, service, and our welcoming faith.
In this small flame dwell the beacon light of lanterns guiding travelers home, the warmth of hearth fires tended through the generations, the transforming energy of furnaces, and the power and life of our sun. May these blessings, warmth, and light and life-giving energy be kindled in each of us.
Good morning. We are gathered here today in this sacred place, our oasis of grace and peace, our beloved community of care and compassion, our spiritual home. So in this beautiful present moment, let us be grateful together. Let us rejoice together. Let us worship together. And so I invite you to join in singing our opening hymn, our beloved hymn number 123, Spirit of Life. And please rise in body and or spirit as you feel able or willing. And Vincent, perhaps we could play it through twice.
All the stars case you're curious, while we're waiting for the slides, the first congregation I worked at sang that song every single Sunday, and the signs I was doing are, as far as I know, fairly accurate American Sign Language that they also did every single Sunday. I can't sing the song without doing the signs. It doesn't work in the brain. So our story this morning is Tico and the Golden Wings, great classic from Leo Leone. I don't know how it happened, but when I was young, I had no wings. I sang like the other birds, and I hopped like them, but I couldn't fly. Luckily, my friends loved me. They flew from tree to tree, and in the evening, they brought me berries and tender fruit gathered from the highest branches. Often I asked myself, why can't I fly like the other birds? Why can't I, too, soar through the big blue sky over the villages and treetops? And I dreamed that I had golden wings, strong enough to carry me away over the snow-capped mountains. One summer night, I was awakened by a noise nearby. A strange bird, pale as a pearl, was standing beside me. "I am the wishing bird," he said. "Make a wish, and it will come true." I remembered my dreams, and with all my might, I wished I had a pair of golden wings. Suddenly, there was a flash of light, and on my back there were wings, golden wings shimmering in the moonlight. The wishing bird had vanished. Cautiously, I flapped my wings, and then I flew. I flew higher than the tallest tree. The flower patches below looked like stamps scattered over the countryside, and the river like a silver necklace lying in the meadows. I was happy, and I flew well into the day. But when my friends saw me swoop down from the sky, they frowned on me and said, "You think you're better than we are, don't you, with those golden wings? You wanted to be different." And off they flew without saying another word. Why had they gone? Were they angry? Was it bad to be different? I could fly as high as an eagle. Mine were the most beautiful wings in the whole world. But my friends had left me, and I was very lonely. One day, I saw a man sitting in front of a hut. He was a basket maker, and there were baskets all around him, but there were tears in his eyes. I flew onto a branch from where I could speak to him. "Why are you sad?" I asked. "Oh, little bird, my child is sick, and I am poor. I cannot buy the medicines that would make him well. How can I help him?" I thought. And suddenly I knew, I will give him one of my feathers. "How can I thank you?" said the poor man happily. "You've saved my child, but look, your wing." Where the golden feather had been, there was a real black feather, as soft as silk. And from that day, little by little, I gave my golden feathers away, and black feathers appeared in their place. I bought many presents, 3 new puppets for a poor puppeteer, a spinning wheel to spin the yarn for an old woman's shawl, a compass for a fisherman who got lost at sea. We done? All right, I guess we're skipping that one. And when I had given my last golden feathers, there we go, to a beautiful bride, my wings were as black as India ink. I flew to the big tree where my friends gathered for the night. Would they welcome me? They chirped with joy. "Now you're just like us," they said. We all huddled close together. But I was so happy and excited that I couldn't sleep. I remembered the basket maker's son, the old woman, the puppeteer, and all the others I had helped with my feathers. Now my wings are black, I thought, and yet I am not like all my friends. We are all different, each for our own memories and our own invisible golden dream. I love this story because Tico learns that it's not wrong to be different, and it's not wrong for other people to accept us, even though we know we are different. I would invite the children and youth to join me in the McGinnis room Our summer teacher, Kelly Nastasi, is with her father-in-law at the hospital today, so I am taking the class, and we'll see you at coffee hour.
Each month at MLUC, we select an offering outreach partner, a local charitable organization that we feel is worthy to receive half our weekly collection to help them with their mission. The recipient of our offering outreach in August through August will once again be Family Promise of the Main Line, formerly Interfaith Hospitality Network. This commitment continues the support we have pledged each summer for several years. Family Promise addresses family homelessness and housing insecurity for people of all faiths, ages, races, ethnicities, and origins. Their mission is to ensure that children and families can access the shelter and comprehensive support they need to be self-sufficient. Our involvement with Family Promise extends beyond our offering outreach. We have hosted families many times over the years, including this past July. Our volunteers provide meals, prepare sleeping spaces, and spend time with families during their stay. To make a cashless donation in person or if watching remotely, please follow the instructions that you see on the screen or use the Give link on our church website. The offering will now be gratefully received. Candles of Community is our ritual of personal sharing and support. After each candle is lit, please join me in saying, "We hold you in our hearts." We light a candle of sorrow for the families who lost loved ones this week in the wildfires that tore through the Hawaiian island of Maui, especially Lahaina. Damage is widespread and recovery will likely take years. For families of those lost and for the beautiful island of Maui itself, we hold you in our hearts. We light a candle of concern for Eileen and Jeff Moran, who have both been home this week battling severe cases of COVID. Their daughter has been helping them by dropping off prescriptions and anything else they need. So for Jeff and Eileen and a speedy recovery, we hold you in our hearts. Terry Dixon lights a candle of concern and gratitude for John Norton, his partner Helen's father, who suffered a stroke last month. Terry reports that the stroke did not affect his great sense of humor, and that he is getting stronger day by day under the great care of Helen and her sister Brenda. Terry asks that we hold John, Helen, and Brenda in our hearts. We light a candle of joy and congratulations for Terry Dixon, who, as you know, is currently completing his master's at Trinity College and will be entering his Master of Divinity program at Harvard. Terry, we wish you enjoyment and success in your studies. And as always, we hold you in our hearts. And finally, we light a candle for any joys, concerns, or sorrows that we carry within us that are unspoken or too deep for words. Our reading today is translated from Arabic and written by Mahmoud Darwish, who before his death was considered the national poet of Palestine. His works all address the themes of Watan, which means homeland, as well as homelessness, exile, and the pain of dislocation. After you hear these words read, please take some moments of stillness to reflect on what these words may mean to you. I belong there. I have many memories. I was born as everyone is born. I have a mother, a house with many windows, brothers, friends, and a prison cell with a chilly window. I have a wave snatched by seagulls, a panorama of my own, a bird's sustenance, an immortal olive tree. I have lived on the land long before swords turned man into prey. I belong there. When heaven mourns for her mother, I return heaven to her mother, and I cry so that a returning cloud might carry my tears. To break the rules, I have learned all the words needed for a trial by blood. I have learned and dismantled all the words in order to draw from them a single word: home.
Vincent, and thank you for all of the beautiful music today. Thank you. Well, I just flew in from Ireland. Boy, are my arms tired. I'll leave now. No, seriously, it is good to be back home again. MLUC has been my spiritual home for the last 20 years. And as I know it is for many of you, this church is a place of solace, a community of warm and loving people where I've met some of the truest friends in my life and where I've been able to grow spiritually. It's also where my daughters learn to grow into the independent, thoughtful, and compassionate young women that they are today. I'm so grateful for all of that. And I also deeply appreciate that the Board of Trustees recently voted on behalf of the congregation to sponsor my next steps on the road to ministry. Thank you all for that. I am immensely honored. Now, you know that we have a wise woman from Kansas in our midst. I'm speaking, of course, of Mary Stromquist. But as another wise woman from Kansas, Dorothy Gale, put it, there's no place like home. There's no place like home. But what is home? What do we mean by home? Recently, I've been thinking a lot about that word, or more exactly, the idea of dual belonging, a sense of being at home in more than one place. I was born in New York while my parents were in the US for a year. My father was teaching at Delphi University. But we left when I was just a few months old, and I mainly grew up in Ireland. I also have dual citizenship. Yes, I am a classic anchor baby. And for the past 35 years, I've primarily lived and worked here in the US. And this is very much home to me. But so is Ireland. My partner Helen, my parents, and my sister and her family all live in Dublin. And for the past few years, I've been spending more time back there. In particular, as was said, this year I've been studying for a master's degree in contextual theologies and interfaith relations at Trinity College Dublin, my old alma mater. So increasingly, I'm feeling at home on both sides of the Atlantic, including being quite comfortable now driving on the wrong side of the road, regardless of which country I'm in. Or perhaps I should say, driving equally dangerously on either side of the road, or even right down the middle. And I also feel at ease as both Irish and American, which, mind you, is very different from being an Irish American. No plastic leprechauns or green beer, please. But that was not always the case. For some years, I didn't feel completely at home in either place. And there's been a period of readjustment as I get used to living in modern-day Ireland, which in some ways has changed considerably since I grew up there, and in other ways, not at all. And then next week, I will start at Harvard and begin to get used to a new home in Cambridge, Massachusetts. Now, my specific experience is different from others, but I think many of us share the same feeling of being at home in more than one place. For some of us, it may be where we grew up, whether that's a different country, state, town, or even just a different neighborhood from from where we now live. Indeed, I know many people who have lived for more years in the new place than where they originally grew up, but where they grew up is still their hometown. And for those of us who are fortunate to have a holiday home or a favorite place to vacation, those places are also very much home. For others, it may be where they went to school or college, and all the friends, traditions, and loyalties that they associate with that institution. After all, there's a reason why school reunions are called homecomings. And for others, those homes maybe are different social homes. Perhaps the places you work, or used to work, or even different careers that you've had during your life. And all of us recognize that given our complex relationships and our various interests, we have different social groups in which we feel at home. For good or ill, those may include our families of origin, our own families, our in-laws and extended family, or even chosen families. Plus, we all have various friend groups or activity groups where we feel at home. Similarly, even within this church community, we may be part of a small group ministry, one or two committees, social action teams, or special interest groups where we feel especially at home. The reality is that in many ways, we all experience dual belonging, or more truthfully, multiple belongings throughout our lives. And that sense of having more than one home can also extend to our spiritual lives. For many, it may be the faith tradition in which we were raised. For some, we may remain closely connected with that faith all our lives. But others may feel the desire or even the need, for one reason or another, to leave that religion behind and adopt another spiritual tradition instead. Our faith home may also be a tradition to which we are culturally connected, but not so much religiously. For example, many people consider themselves culturally Jewish, but not so much religiously. And increasingly, the same is true for many Catholics in Ireland. Others may still find the religion of their childhood meaningful, but no longer exclusively so. And for others, they may find they no longer believe the tenets of that religion, or have other compelling reasons, such as clerical abuse, socio-political positions, sexuality, etc., to leave their original faith. But even if we leave those childhood faith traditions behind, as many UUs have done, we are still molded by them, to some extent at least. They still have an influence on us. Again, for good or ill, they are part of who we are. Those faiths may be in the rear-view mirror, but like where we grew up or our families of origin, they are still in some way home. And without in any way trying to minimize the trauma of some people's experience with religions, possibly we can still reconnect with some of those traditions from our childhood and partially incorporate them into our current spiritual lives. In other words, perhaps we don't have to completely throw out the holy infant with the holy bathwater. For example, in my case, my parents are atheists, and I grew up essentially unchurched. But this was Ireland in the 1970s and 80s, and although, thankfully, we did not experience the Troubles as in the North, the Republic was still largely a sectarian society. Indeed, the joke went that you could be an atheist in Ireland, but you had to be a Catholic atheist or a Protestant atheist. So I largely grew up on the Protestant side. I went to a Protestant private school that was affiliated with the local Anglican church. I participated in a Protestant youth group. Most of my friends were Protestant. And then I attended Trinity College Dublin, which still had the reputation of being a historically Protestant institution. Thankfully, things have changed a lot in Ireland in the last 50 years. The country is increasingly cosmopolitan and diverse, racially, ethnically, and in terms of faith traditions. And because of the changing times and various scandals, the conservative social and political power of the Catholic Church has diminished considerably. But I still grew up with an inherent bias against the Catholic faith, which I regarded as superstitious, obsessed with iconography, and absurd in many of its teachings and moral positions. But as a result of that prejudice, I failed to appreciate some of the deep beauty and spiritual richness of that faith tradition. I was certainly guilty of throwing out both the holy water and the holy infant. For example, every day at 12 noon and 6 p.m, the bells of the Catholic churches in Ireland ring out the Angelus, a call to prayer, somewhat like the Muslim Udhan, recited by the Muezzin. It's even broadcast on RTE, the national radio and TV network. Now, growing up, I disliked that. Not just for what I saw as nonsensical piety, but also as an imposition of Catholicism on the rest of the country. But more recently, I've changed my mind. I've come to appreciate the beauty and deep spiritual significance of what it represents. I still hear it as a call to prayer, but not a particular type of prayer. Instead, for me now, it represents an opportunity to pause what I'm doing, to breathe into the present moment and reflect. I view it as a moment of Zen, made possible and offered to me as a gift by the Catholic Church. It's a beautiful thing. Now, some people also have a more specific sense of dual belonging in their spiritual lives, a sense of being truly at home in more than one faith tradition. For example, I increasingly see myself as both a Unitarian Universalist and a Buddhist. A number of people in our congregation and the wider denomination feel the same way. For example, as you may know, there is a Unitarian Universalist Buddhist fellowship which participates in General Assembly and holds biennial convocations. And of course, there are also UU Christians, UU Pagans, UU Hindus, UU Muslims, and many other hybrids. Now, it's perhaps easier for UUs to have a sense of dual belonging in more than one tradition, since we are a creedless faith and we expressly draw from multiple sources. In addition, a number of us came to Unitarian Universalism as a result of marrying partners from other religious backgrounds. Now, of course, there are also mixed marriages in other faith traditions. But in Ireland, that was historically a Protestant marrying a Catholic. And in South Philly, I gather it's when an Italian Catholic marries an Irish Catholic. Increasingly, however, different faith traditions are also experiencing genuine examples of dual spiritual belonging. For example, Dr. Rose Drew has published an interesting study exploring the experiences of those who consider themselves both Christian and Buddhist. And the theologian Paul Nitter famously wrote a book entitled, "Without Buddha, I Could Not Be a Christian." And importantly, these people are not dilettantes dabbling in other faiths. They are not nightstand Buddhists, as one critic put it. No, they are genuinely engaged in, and through deep reflection, consciously committed to different spiritual traditions. Moreover, like Reverend Zenshin Florence Kaplow, who is both an ordained Zen priest and an ordained UU minister, many dual belongers do not consider themselves to be partially one faith and partially another, but fully both. They truly have two spiritual homes, 100% both, completely interrelated, interpenetrating, and interdependent. I also want to reflect on the broader practical and spiritual concepts of what it means to have a home. We know, tragically, that far too many people in our society do not have a stable place to call home and suffer from home insecurity. Nor is it an accident that we call people living on the streets homeless, not houseless, but homeless. Because a home is so much more than just a dwelling place, a roof over your head. It is the place where we feel safe, the place where we belong, the place that grounds us. That is what the homeless are seeking, and which, in this land of abundance, they have a right to expect. One of my favorite scenes in the movie It's a Wonderful Life is when the Martinis move into their new house, which they were able to purchase with the help of their neighbors through the Bailey Building and Loan. I love how Mr. Martini proudly boasts that he owns his own home and no longer will have to rent from the evil Mr. Potter. And then George and Mary drive the Martini kids, their dogs, and the family goat to the new house for a home warming. Mr. and Mrs. Martini, welcome home. Enter the Martini Castle. And that's why I'm delighted that for years our congregation has supported Family Promise of the Main Line as one of our primary social outreach programs. Just as we did again today in the offering outreach, we are helping families on the road to permanent housing. The promise of a place to truly call home. There is no better cause that we could support. And I would also be remiss if I didn't mention the poor people in Maui and other disaster victims. As we know, many people died in the fire, but thousands also lost their homes. Again, that's just not the loss of a building, but a home, a place that connects people together. I also think that the concept of dual belonging and our shared understanding of having more than one home can help us understand somewhat what immigrants, whether documented or otherwise, go through, and especially to appreciate the plight of refugees and exiles. In the past, when someone emigrated from Ireland to America, people would hold an American wake to say goodbye to them, because they knew they would probably never see that person again in this world. Now, when I moved back to the US after college, I knew I could go home again to Ireland. But in many ways, I did feel like an immigrant with all the culture shock and other issues. But even if you grew up in the US, I think that from your own lived experiences, you can understand that fish out of water feeling. A feeling that is made all the harder if you're not a white male, lack money or other resources, don't speak English, or are terrified that you might be deported. And the situation is even worse for refugees, who, by definition, cannot go home again due to fear of persecution or even death. Not only have they had to flee their home country, but they are often also cut off entirely from friends, family, and their cultural reference points. That is why I'm also proud that we have been sponsoring and supporting the Malakzai family as they build their new home in this country after fleeing the Taliban in Afghanistan. Plus, the undeniable truth is that welcoming people from different countries, backgrounds, cultures, and faith traditions enriches all of us. I've seen that in Ireland, which in the last few years has welcomed immigrants and refugees from all over the world, including most recently over 75,000 people fleeing the war in Ukraine. Indeed, the village just outside Dublin, where Helen and I live, hosts the primary refugee resettlement centre in the country. There has been a little backlash, but the vast majority of Irish people see this hospitality as paying it forward for the welcome shown to the Irish diaspora over the centuries. As we say in Irish, Céad Míle Fáilte, 100,000 welcomes. Now, immigration and refugee policies are, and have always been, politically controversial. But the enduring truth is that the US has grown as a nation and is immensely richer and more dynamic due to immigration. Over the decades, this country has been enhanced and grown stronger through repeated waves of immigrants and refugees. And also, of course, by enslaved people who, let's not forget, also left their homes, just not voluntarily. People who, for whatever reason, leave their old homes and make new ones in the US, while also bringing some of the old sod with them, culinarily, culturally, and in other ways. That is what the strength and vitality of this nation was built on, and always will be. Strength in multiplicity, growth through diversity. So in conclusion, I see our understanding and appreciation of how each of us has multiple homes, our sense of dual belonging, as one of our greatest sources of strength, culturally, socially, and yes, spiritually. But as the Time for All Ages story taught us, we also learn from our own personal experiences and memories. Our invisible golden dreams are what makes us all different and yet the same. And we can bring those feathers with us when we return home in order to enrich others. Now, earlier we sang our great UU anthem, Spirit of Life, with its stirring words, roots hold me close, wings set me free. That, to me, is dual belonging. And so, as Mahmoud Darwish put it in the reflective reading, we must learn and dismantle all the words to draw from them a single word: home. Blessed be, and may it be so. And now, bearing in mind that wherever we call home, we really only have a single home, this one beautiful, fragile planet, which we all share and must protect, our blue boat home. I invite you, therefore, to sing our closing hymn, number 1064 in the Teal hymnal, and please stand in body or spirit as you wish and feel able. As we extinguish the chalice, the symbolic hearth and heart of our spiritual home, and leave this sacred place, may we never forget that we are one blessed family, each with our unique gifts, our invisible golden dreams, which both unite us and make each one of us special. And as we leave here, our collective home, and travel back to our individual homes, may we feel surrounded by the love of this diverse but unified community. Amen, and may it be so. And now, if you please remain seated while Vincent plays our postlude. Thank you.